In this week's episode of Studio Inter, we'll be previewing the Milan Derby with Milan TV commentator Sheridan Bird. We'll be reviewing the Empoli and Udinese wins. We'll be also previewing the Sheriff game in the Champions League, this week's Moggi, Moratti and Frog, and much more. Everything here on Studio Inter, on StudioInter.com.
Correa gliding inside. Correa! Breakthrough at the Piazza. Inter needed a goal, and Joaquin Correa obliges.
Benvenuti, bentornati to another edition of Studio Inter. I'm your host Nima, Tavallaey, welcoming you to a great week when Inter won 2 games in a row, kept 2 clean sheets, going into a very important week. But before we get into all of that, let me introduce my panelists, starting with our good friend Michael Gallo, all the way from Canada, producer over on TSN. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing really well. That was a rare 6 points between podcasts. Enjoyable week, and glad to be back with you guys today.
It's good to have you back. It's good to be with you. And also, we're also joined by SempreInter.com SempreInter.com feature writer, writes a column every week called 5 Things We Learned from Inter This Week, Mr. Jake Smalley.
You thought I was Mel then for a minute, didn't you? That's really disappointing.
It's like every Monday I'm used to saying this for like a couple of years now. So
Really good Mr. Positivity there as well.
Well, I guess you can pick up the cloak from Mr. Positivity now that he's missing a pod, which is really rare. So you can fly the flags of positivity. I guess that's easier given the week we've had. Right, and we're also joined by a very special guest. He's a very good friend of the show. Last year, he used to commentate for the good people from Fiat. He no longer does that. He's instead moved over to Inter's crosstown rivals, commentating for Milan TV. Welcome, Mr. Sheridan Bird.
Hi there. Hi, guys. I hope you are all well. Nice introduction, Nima. I confirm I am working for the European Cup-wise most successful team in the city of Milan.
Well, that is true. But I mean, let's start there. It's going to be. I mean, let's start with the Milan Derby, because it's quite a fascinating derby. I think this is probably the most interesting derby in terms of quality that we've seen between these two sides in a very long time. Milan are more mature, a year more ready than they've been. Excellent start, as is now usual under Stefano Pioli. And Ibrahimovic, who's firing, he's 40 years old and is just amazing. What are your expectations going into the derby? What kind of game do you expect to see?
Well, first of all, I have to agree and say that this could be one of the best derbies, not just in terms of on the turf, but in terms of what the teams are fighting for quite a while, because certainly since I moved to Milan permanently, which was 2015, there was a large spell of just really insignificant, dull derbies. But this one has the makings of being anything but that. And as you say, Milan have got off to a cracking start, into the odd stumble, but they have got those 6 points in the last week or so. So I think this could be a really entertaining, keenly fought match that I think will be decided by quality, and that hasn't always been the case in the last few years. Half a decade almost. I've watched a lot of derbies between the two sides that have been decided because someone fell asleep in defence, or someone just didn't do their job properly. But my feelings are that this could be a really high quality derby. I guess the only thing to consider is what happens in midweek in Europe in terms of injury. If either match is particularly demanding, might have a big say. But if all of the key players for both sides get through unscathed, it could be a cracking derby.
Well, it absolutely could. I want to ask you a little bit about what were your thoughts on everything that's happened at Inter since we last spoke, since you were last on the pod, because quite a lot has happened. Inter won the Scudetto. Antonio Conte left. He's going to Spurs apparently, and now then Lukaku and Hakimi left as well. What do you make of everything that's happened at Inter? I mean, what do you think? How well do you think Simone Inzaghi will do?
Well, I think Inzaghi is doing well. I think he's one of the best youngish coaches. I mean, in terms of management, he's young. He's one of the best youngish coaches in Italy. I like his style. I think the Inter fans appreciate what he's doing and they like the way he was playing. I mean, it's definitely a cavalier, everything on the table style football, which I think Inter fans would probably like to see within reason, not in a suicidal sense. And to answer the first part of your question, I mean, you could say that it's been a mad couple of months, but it's also been a very Inter couple of months because, you know, I'm among friends here in the sense that I can say that we all know whether we support Inter or not. It is a club of it's Pazza, Inter, Amala, etc. They are known for being it's a madhouse. I think everyone knows that, and I think the fans, you guys, embrace that, even though it can occasionally be the bane of your sporting lives. But it was almost a typical Inter summer, sort of win the league, knock the bad guys off their perch. We've got the best, one of the best strikers in Europe. Oh, but hang on, Conte's grumbling. Oh, look, Conte's gone, but it's okay. We're not going to need to sell any play. Oh, Lukaku's gone. Hang on, and Hakimi, and all of a sudden, in a way that I can describe, again, respectfully, with affection, only Inter, I think, could go from the joy, the ecstasy of winning the league and ripping it from the clutches of the, as you call them, the folk from Fiat, and then everything sort of disintegrating or parts of it falling off. To me, it's very, very Inter, and let's be honest, it's part of the charm of the Nerazzurri.
Well, I can tell you that I don't find it charming anymore. I want boring wins. I want stability. I don't know if it's middle age or what it is, but I want calmness. I'm going to hand you over to Mike. Mike, did you have a question for Sheridan?
Yes, Sheridan, I've got a very important question for you. What is, out of these three players, what is your favorite name in Serie A right now? Is it Kevin Lasagna? Is it Alessandro Buongiorno? Or my new favorite, we've got one I just kind of discovered this week after watching Inter Udinese, is Isaac Success. Of those three players, what's your favorite?
Well, I have to say, I saw Success the other day have some success, and I thought that was impressive. But I think probably Kevin Lasagna, and I'll tell you why, because there are many layers to his game.
Oh my God.
At times he's been playing for teams that were perhaps below his level, and he's been leading the line, so he's had a lot on his plate. And and when he's on song, when he's fit, I'd say his finishing is delicious.
Dear God. I hate you for that, Mike. I hate you for that. Ask a serious question now.
Good for you coming up on the spot with that. I'm very impressed. Oh, great. All right, now to something a little more serious. Okay, so I'm looking at Milan right now, and they've won 5 straight games. And I'm looking at them in Champions League, and they are horrific. Are they doing the Inter route from last year, kind of crashing out and going 4th place in the group just so they can spend more time on the league, which seems like they're still playing in Champions League right now, but it seems like that's kind of the way it's going to go. And if they're going to be successful to win the Scudetto, that might be the way to go, kind of like what Inter did last year.
Yeah, I can see elements of what Inter have done in the last few years, or particularly last year. Obviously, it's not voluntary. I mean, I was at Milan HQ when the draw was made, and it was a real mixture of being pleased to be back in the tournament that, you know, they consider, after Real Madrid, they consider it their competition. But the group it couldn't have gone worse, let's be honest. I mean, if the relatively easy team in your group are the team that are very aggressive by Portuguese league standards, contain Pepe, who is still going despite his advancing years, one of the best Iranian, the Iranian attacker Taremi, which I probably pronounced incorrectly, but thankfully we have a person who can help me with that. But I've seen him give real problems to Juventus, and I've now seen him really give the much vaunted Milan central defensive partnership of Kjaer and Tomori gave them a nightmare. So yeah, it's I do think, unfortunately, because it would also, for me, for work-wise, it would be a shame if they went out of Europe at the first hurdle completely, doing an Inter, so to speak. But it's so tough. They've really put themselves in a difficult position because teams have come back from losing their first 3 games before, but not teams in the same group as Liverpool, who this season, they're my tip for the Champions League, by the way. So feel free to record that and send it back to me if they get knocked out in the first knockout round. But I do believe Liverpool will win the Champions League. Atletico were always a horrible team to play against. Atletico at San Siro against Milan, just showed why they're such an unpleasant opponent. And as I say, Porto are not to be underestimated. So you could well say that Milan, if they do get knocked out of Europe completely, they could use that time off during the week to work on training, to get the fitness levels back up, to rest the key players, because they do have some aging stars. So, yeah, I mean, glass half full. If they do get knocked out, they have to use it to their benefit, as Antonio Conte and Inter did.
Yeah, that's a good point. Jake, did you have a question for Sheridan? Then the floor is yours.
I haven't been able to think of a silly one. I was going to ask you what your perfect Sunday's like, but
No.
I'll stick with logic and reasoning sense. I wanted to ask you who you think will finish higher in the league this season. Do you think Inter will finish higher, or do you think Milan will finish higher?
I loved Nima's cry of no when you said you were going to ask a fun question, because I think Nima's right. There's no room for fun because it's we're talking about Inter. So, but I mean, I do believe that this feels like Milan's year. That's cynical people. I've got lots of friends in the city who are like you, are of the black and blue persuasion, and they keep saying how a lot of luck is falling Milan's way, and it's got that look of a Scudetto season. And personally, watching Napoli storming to the top of the league, I have a suspicion in my gut that, much as I respect Luciano Spalletti, I think he'll find a way, and Napoli will find a way, of not being top of the table in May. So by process of elimination, I just think that leaves Milan, and they have bought shrewdly. They've got some exciting young players, and then they've also got that core of experience. Again, I don't think no trophies. First of all, no serious trophies are given out in November, so it'd be wrong to say that the title's already won by anybody. But Milan, they are looking very confident. They're looking like a good blend of youthful exuberance and wise heads. They are getting a little bit of luck, it has to be said, but I think every team needs a bit of luck sometimes. And they look mature, as I think Nima mentioned in his intro. They look wise. They look battle hardened. So you asked me, and I'll be honest with you, even though I know the orientation of this podcast, I think Milan will probably finish higher than Inter, because it just looks like things are clicking there. And as we said before, especially if they go out of Europe, they're going to have a lot of time to pamper damaged, delicate older bodies and work on any tactical problems during the week.
Exactly. I don't think that's a fair assessment on that. But I mean, speaking of Scudetti and who's going to win, I mean, give us your top 6 from 1 to 6. Who you predict is how it's going to end, how it's going to pan out.
Well, that's really caught me off guard there, Nima. I thank you for that. I'll be sending you abuse on WhatsApp when my phone gets sorted. Well, you're asking someone who supports Napoli, so I'm going to say I hope Napoli finish top of the league. I think the top 2 will be either Napoli or Milan. Then I can see Inter in 3rd, then Atalanta in 4th.
Ooh.
Then because they've actually, a lot of my colleagues in the British press were sort of asking me if this is the same Atalanta that has been doing so well for the last few years. But if you look really closely, they have just refreshed things. They have made a few moves, and they have signed a few new faces, some of them with really strong characters like Demiral. So I can see Atalanta sneaking a Champions League place. Juventus in a mess, let's be honest. So I think 5th could be the final destination for them. And 6th place, I'm not convinced by Jose Mourinho's Roma, I'll be honest with you. So I'm going to say, more out of respect, love for the manager, I'm going to say Lazio.
Fair enough. Who do you think is going to be the capocannoniere? Because I've got Victor Osimhen, despite the fact that he'll be going to the African Cup of Nations in January. What do you think there? Who do you think is going to win the capocannoniere?
Again, it's another tough one. I mean, you always have to expect Ciro Immobile to be in there because he takes penalties as well. Osimhen doesn't take the spot kicks. It's hard to say because a lot of the natural candidates do tend to get a lot of injuries. So maybe I'm with you, and it might be Osimhen, might be Ciro Immobile. I can't think of anyone else at the moment. Vlahovic. I mean, let's imagine that Vlahovic gets a dream move for him to one of the Champions League clubs, and they can put chances on him. So put chances on a plate for him. He could have a good one, and so keep your eye on Vlahovic, even if he stays at Fiorentina, which he probably won't. He'll still have plenty of chances as the main man. So I would guess, I hope Osimhen, but I have my suspicions it could well be Ciro Immobile. But keep an eye on Vlahovic.
No, for sure. I think this is his last season in the Serie A. I would like to see him stay in the Serie A, and I think that Juve are absolutely gunning for him. But with Antonio Conte at Spurs, it wouldn't surprise me if we saw him move there next summer. But I think that's a good shout. What about, just quickly, Coppa Italia and Supercoppa? Do you think that Juventus, who are in a mess, will win anything this season? Or who do you think will win those two titles?
The Coppa Italia is a strange one, isn't it? In the sense that the top clubs, however you want to define that, of the Champions League placing clubs, don't really enter the competition till quite advanced. So it could be any one of the big clubs, to be quite honest. And as you say, it could be a form of redemption for Juventus. I mean, Andrea Pirlo, he did get some silverware last season, albeit the less glamorous trophies, but I wouldn't write Juventus off of that, but it's not what they would have been expecting at the beginning of the season. But like I say, I wouldn't be surprised if it is Juventus that win the Coppa Italia, because it's quite simple for the top clubs. They don't play that many matches, and if their season is really derailed, and if it's really, in terms of league position, looking bad, I think they're going to put everything into winning a trophy, Coppa Italia, so they can say, look, we did finish this season with some silverware, continuing our streak.
No, that's true. That's a good shout. Before we let you go, I want to hear, if it's okay. I know it's Scaramanzia, but would you be comfortable to predict the Milan Derby?
I'll be comfortable, but I don't know if you guys will be comfortable with my prediction. So
go for it.
I think the Association Calcio Milan will win 2-1. You're welcome to, again, save that clip, and if I'm wrong, taunt me with it. But I just think they're more advanced in. I mean, it's logical that they're more advanced in this. They're more in their groove because they've been with Pioli for several seasons now, whereas Inter are still getting to know Inzaghi and vice versa. Even I've had some friends who support Inter saying that it's actually bad that Theo Hernandez is not playing, because they were kind of looking forward to just getting into some of the holes that he leaves in defence when he gallops forward. There is that argument. I mean, I like Theo Hernandez, but I completely accept that big matches, he does occasionally leave something to be desired. So there are those who sort of are a bit peeved that he's not. Let's say it's one of the rare occasions when both sets of fans are disappointed. The Milan fans are disappointed because he is such an exuberant attacking presence, and the Inter fans are disappointed because they fancied sort of finding a few gaps and taking advantage of his occasionally cavalier positioning.
That's actually what I thought as well. I think it's a little bit of a blessing in disguise for Milan, because that means that Inter won't be able to maraud down that flank, because he does leave, when he goes on these runs, he does leave acres of space behind, and I think that won't happen now. It's a little bit of a situation. Thank you so much, Sheridan, for coming on. It's always a pleasure to have you. And thank you so much for food puns about Kevin and lasagna. That really, really made my day.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure to be on as well. And I hope you guys enjoy the derby. And I wish there could have been a second silly question, but Nima nixed that one, which is that's old grumpy Nima for you. But no, on a slightly more serious note, enjoy the rest of the week and enjoy the derby. And it'd be nice to speak again soon about food or football.
Thank you, Sheridan. Thank you so much for coming on. Take care.
Thanks, Sheridan.
Right. Let's talk on the derby. Let's start on that point, because I think Sheridan is absolutely right. That I honestly think that Theo Hernandez coming up there, because I think Darmian would have played in his position to the right instead of Dumfries against Theo, and he would have kind of waited to attack. And now I look at that and I'm thinking, what do Inter do? And where do they attack? Because I think these teams are pretty evenly balanced. Maybe I'd say that in midfield Inter is a little bit better with Barella and Brozovic, and I mean, there is the Calhanoglu factor that we're going to discuss as well. But I want to hear. Let's talk about Theo Hernandez thing. I mean, where are you on this, Mike?
I don't think so. I mean, look, he's a really good player. He's one of I think he's come up really quickly as one of Milan's best players right now. So I don't think it's a blessing in disguise that he's not on the field. I understand the logic of it in terms of defensively, but I like Theo as a player. I think what he's done the last couple of years, as he's gotten a lot better. I don't see it as a negative look for Milan. That's just where I look at it. And
no, I mean more as a negative for Inter, because it's obviously
sorry, that's what I'm getting at too. Yeah, I don't think it's a negative. I think it's a good thing for Inter if that's the case. I don't know.
Okay.
That's kind of I understand the logic of in terms of where Inter is going to be attacking and stuff, but I don't see that as, and I could be totally wrong, but I don't see it as a good thing for Inter for Theo not be playing for the derby. I don't know. It's not where I agree.
No, I understand. What about you, Jake? Where are you on this? What do you think?
I think if you had Hakimi in the squad still, I think it'd be a massive bonus. Because I think those spaces behind that Theo does sort of leave a bit unattended will be truly exploited by Hakimi. I think at the moment it's pretty obvious that it needs to be Matteo Darmian starting in that right wing back slot at the moment. So I think, based on what you said, Nima, I think Darmian's someone who's played the game long enough. He's got that experience, that nous to have taken advantage of Theo. But I think going forward, he's a little bit lacking, and I don't really trust Dumfries just yet. I don't want to write him off and give him criticism like a lot of people sort of have done. I think it's unfair to do that. But I think we'd be looking at it in a much more of a different way if it was this time last year. I think Fode Ballo-Touré will come into that left sort of back slot and just try and be as solid as possible. So it sort of takes that idea out. But with Theo not playing, they do lose that attacking sort of quality from that left-hand side, which is probably a bonus for Inter.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's a fantastic tool attacking-wise for Milan, and him not playing is good in that sense. But given how, how stable Inter have been looking defensively, I was kind of looking forward to using the space he leaves behind. But of course, I mean, let's be honest, Theo is a fantastic player, and him not playing is bad for Milan and good for Inter. Sure. But looking, we got to talk about Hakan Calhanoglu, because, first of all, do you guys think he'll play? And do you think he should play? I thought the game against Udinese was actually his best performance in an Inter shirt since the Genoa game. And then, I think the reason for that is because it's twofold. I thought that the problems that he's had with playing next to Brozovic and Barella is slowly getting into it. I found that against Udinese especially. He's slowly finding his feet in that position. And secondly is because Correa's more of a number 10, and I thought that when Inter play a 3-5-1-1, Inter are better balanced for him to go on an attacking runs forward. Do you? I mean, let's start there. Do you think that he should play, and do you think he will play, and do you think he should start? I'll start with you, Jake.
To be honest with you, I've not massively been convinced by Calhanoglu at all. I wasn't sort of convinced by him when they signed him. I sat there a bit during the game on Sunday, and prior to Correa scoring, I thought, who would I take off? I'd take Dumfries off. I'd take Calhanoglu off, and I'd probably take Correa off. It just shows that in some ways, it might take a bit more time to sort of get used to things, and he might improve. Similar to how we saw with Christian Eriksen I discussed this briefly last week, looking at my 5 things, and I think you can draw a lot of parallels between Calhanoglu and Ericsson when he first joined Inter. He's a bit of a square peg in a round hole at the minute. You know, Calhanoglu's a player who's played off the left in his career. He's played as a true number 10. Now he's sort of having to play across the 3. When he's getting the ball now, he's having to go sideways sometimes rather than be in a position where he can shoot or put a cross in the box. So if he can adapt, I think over the next sort of few weeks, he could become vital, but it could be a better time for him to, excuse me, sort of kickstart his into career, really, given the fixture list that they've got coming in. And part of him will probably want to prove something to Milan fans as well. You know, it wasn't like he wasn't very outspoken about leaving in the summer, was it, either, really?
Yeah, that's a good point. What about you, Mike? I mean, what do you think about should Calhanoglu play, and do you think he will play?
Well, there's no doubt 100% he should play. This is like your perfect revenge game, and we have a lot of revenge games in North American sports, and we had a lot on the weekend in other sports, and you always see that player playing against their former team, they elevate their game. They've always got something to prove, and especially in this situation, Milan kind of gave up on Hakan. So it's like, as a manager, I want Hakan playing in this game, and as a player, I especially want to play in this game. And I thought he was pretty good against Udinese. I like he was getting pretty deep into, getting a lot of touches into the midfield, coming in deeper. I like to see that from that central attacking midfielder. There's no doubt that when a player has it kind of a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, you need to have him at least get him into the game and see what he's going to be giving you for the first 45 minutes. And if it's, if he's not giving you what you expect, then you can always make that substitution. However, what I will say is, I think that, he hasn't really done much the last, I'd say, a month and a half. He did start, I think it was his first game of the season he scored, right? And ever since then, he hasn't really done that much. So this would be the perfect, as Jake just said, perfect spot to kind of revitalize, kind of kickstart his season with Inter. I think that this would be the perfect time to do it.
I'm inclined to agree. Right. Well, I mean, go. It is the derby. It is an important. It is. I think that it's one of those games that if Inter draw this game, they're still, as long as they don't lose it. If they lose it, I think Inter are out of the Scudetto race already now. I think 10 points to Milan and Napoli is going to be too much to recover from. But if they win, of course they're in it. And if they draw, then you can still say that they're in it, because they're going to play, Napoli after the international break. But a win in both of those games would be, hallelujah. But I don't see that happening. I don't know. I'm thinking a draw. I'm thinking a 1-1-2-2 draw. What about you, Jake? What's your predictions? Oh, by the way, and I have to say, sorry, Zlatan Ibrahimovic is going to score against Inter. Just everybody just expect it, because that's what he does. He's going to score against Inter. He's going to celebrate, turn to the Curva Nord and shush them. That's what he does. Just so everyone knows, that's going to happen. Probably from the penalty spot as well, if we're perfectly honest. So don't, because if Kessie is injured or something, but he's definitely going to score. Sorry, Jake, you're your turn.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He'll definitely score in that game. I've been looking at this in quite a negative way, to be honest. I've been looking at it a little bit like the fixture last season, the first derby. I think a bit like what Sheridan said earlier, AC Milan are in a bit more of a better moment than Inter. I think Inter are getting better. I think, like we've mentioned, defensively they've improved. They look a bit more resolute. But I just think in the role that Milan are on, I think they're the favourites for me going into this game. I think they're a team more likely to win. They've got the home support as well. But I can't predict Inter to lose. I've made this promise to myself before I've ever predicted any sort of result. So I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. Zlatan scoring and Correa will equalise late on.
What about you, Mike?
Well, that was exactly what I was going to say. I was going to go with a 1-1 draw and Ibra from the penalty spot. And I was actually going to say Correa too, but now that Jake said that, I can't say Correa is going to score, because he just scored 2 goals and he's not going to score again this game. At least I don't think so. I mean, look, Lautaro didn't start last game. I would expect him to start the next game. So I would I'm going to say it's 1-1, but with low tower scoring. I would disagree with the point that you made, Nima, that Inter is out of the Scudetto race should they lose this game. I don't think we're there yet. We're still pretty early in the season, and I think Milan is overachieving at this point, and they're due for some letdown games. I know that Napoli is also up there too, so there's not just one team you have to worry about. But I wouldn't say that a loss is like, the end of the Scudetto race. Obviously, it puts a big dent in the season, and it's not ideal, and probably brings their chances from probably in the somewhat mid 20% range to less than that. But I don't think this would be the end of the Scudetto race should they lose this game. But I don't think they're going to lose. I think they're going to draw or potentially win.
Well, I mean, if they win going into the international break, and then Napoli, where Simone Inzaghi's got 2 weeks to prepare for that game. Yeah, I'm not. I'm very, 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 very. If they win against Milan, I'll be very confident going into the Napoli game after the international break, because as I said, they play Napoli at home, and I really think they can harm Napoli there. I really, really think so, because as I said, I mean, when Simone has got 2 weeks to prepare, it's not a midweek game in between. Then I think he'll be able to pull it off, and it'll be Napoli and Shakhtar, 2 games at home, so there's not much traveling to talk about either. So I mean, these 2 next weeks I think are going to be pretty, not decisive, but a first important indication of where Inter is in the title race. I don't think Inter have started off the season poorly. I think they've pretty much done exactly what you could expect of them, and maybe a little bit even better. I think they were unlucky in some games, but regardless, I think and it's only going to improve, I think, as Inzaghi finds his feet. But I do think that, on the other hand, Milan and Napoli look so solid. They look so much more mature and solid than they have in a very long time, and that's why I think 10 points up to that first spot is very difficult, because it would require a collapse pretty much after that, because beating those 2 teams, it's still 7 points up. So that's why I'm a little bit. But we'll have to wait and see. I think it's going to be quite the title race for sure. Right, let's just quickly talk about the Champions League game that we're playing on Wednesday against Sheriff away, a game that won't be allowed, where Inter fans won't be allowed to travel to, due to, I think, the reason given is COVID restrictions. But regardless, we got to be honest. Inter have to win that game. I mean, these 2 games against Sheriff, I keep saying it. If Inter don't win, they have to punt. The remaining games, because you don't want to go to the Europa League. And given that they beat Sheriff convincingly, if they have to win this game, there's no ifs, ands, or about it. So what do you guys think? What predictions are we predicting, so to speak? Starting with you, Jake.
Well, it's pretty cut and dried, isn't it? Like you say, it's simply going to have to be 3 points, and history tells you, and the DNA of this club tells you, that it's not going to be straightforward, and more likely than not, it's going to be 0-0. I think if you look at the games against Shakhtar last couple of seasons, I think at the PSV one as well, it's just really frustrating. I find it really hard to get myself excited about this game. We've seen that Sheriff can pull off sort of surprising results as well, which is not ideal from an Inter perspective. For what it's worth, I think they've peaked a little bit this campaign. But it's really simple. There's no other way. It's going to have to go other than 3 points, and Inter just going to have to absolutely go for it. My only concern heading into this game is where the goal's going to come from. I think if you think about the game yesterday and you look at the team for the first 60 minutes, they were pretty blunt. And I think one player who looked a little bit tired and weary was Edin Dzeko for me. I thought he played well. It wasn't a criticism of his performance, but I thought he seemed quite tired. And it is clear to see that Inzaghi is relying on him quite a bit at the moment. So I think Dzeko is going to be the key. I think he's going to be the one that's going to sort of push them forward, similar to how he did in the home match, which wasn't even that straightforward itself. I think if I'm going to sort of predict the game, I want to be positive. So I'm going to go with a 2-0 win, but I don't think it'll be straightforward. Everything in my mind that has watched Inter over the past few years, it just points towards disappointment and frustration. But I'm going to try and be positive. Mo's not here, so they're going to win.
Okay, fair enough. What about you, Mike?
Yeah. Historically, like my brain is just telling me this game is going to be a draw. It's just this scream. It's just what we've looked at the last couple of years when we've been in these situations, when you've got that must-win game, and really if Inter takes 3 points in this game, I could really see Sheriff not getting a point the rest of the campaign, and they can stay on 6. But I mean, this is probably the most important game of the entire group going the rest of the way, because if this game ends up being a draw, Sheriff really thinks that they've got a shot to make it to the next round. And if they lose, I think their morale is going to be gone. Especially with Shakhtar right now, likely going to stay on 1 point after 4 games if they lose to Real. Everything tells me with these previous Shakhtar games in the last couple years, everything just screams like a 0-0, 1-1 game. And I don't like that, and I don't like the fact that my brain is telling me this. But at the other end, I mean, look, that first game wasn't that like Jake said, it wasn't cut and dry. It wasn't a guarantee. Like, it was tied pretty late in that game, second half. But I mean, I would hope that this is a more straightforward win with this seems like a Dzeko game as well. I'm agreeing with everything Jake's saying today, which is kind of, this is good. I guess it's good news.
Thank you.
Yeah, everything he's been saying. What's funny is I actually started going before him when this podcast started, and then now Jake's ahead of me, so I'm actually agreeing with everything he's saying. But look, this is a Dzeko game, and I also don't like the fact that it's just, they got the Milan Derby right before it too, because if they can go and have a great result against Milan, it's just kind of like a letdown against Sheriff, just, with just 2 days in between those 2 games, which I don't like when you have those 2 really big games back to back like that, especially with Champions League and like a big game against Milan or Juve or Napoli. So my brain tells me it's going to be a 0-0, 1-1 game, but it shouldn't be. And Inter should be favorites, and they should win this game.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm saying 3-0, 2-3-0, because this is I think Inter are gonna go gung ho, and I think that given that Inzaghi, which leads us nicely to our next segment, and that is given the fact that Simone Inzaghi was able to rotate the squad as well as he was and made so many changes and got the responses that he wanted, that means he has a lot of key players that are rested, including Edin Dzeko and Lautaro Martinez, which I think is really, really important. So I think Inter are going to win this. I think he will continue to rotate a little bit. I think Correa will start again. I expect Arturo Vidal to start as well. And I think Alexis Sanchez will start too. I think he's going to continue. I think the defense is going to pretty much be the same. But for the rest, I think he's going to make those changes because it's important for the club and it's important for him. And Alexis Sanchez, I mean, let's move on to that. He was fantastic against Empoli. Let's be honest. Sure, Empoli and Udinese are not the best teams in Europe or the Serie A, but the way that Inter approached these games, the calmness that they, got through these 2 games, and Danilo D'Ambrosio in the first game, Alexis Sanchez in that first game against Empoli, they really showed their class. And Alexis Sanchez, if he's good enough to dominate against these players. Against these teams of this level, I was so impressed with how Inter took to approach these 2 games, because the thing that we've been going on about on this podcast is the balance. There's no balance. Inter don't control the midfield. Well, they controlled these games from start to finish in different ways. They controlled it against Empoli by slowly working themselves into the game against Empoli, who was kind of threatening them in attack. They were more attacking than Udinese was, and Inter resolved that. And Danilo D'Ambrosio was showed again why he's such an important player. And as Andrea Ranocchia did in the Udinese game, that they're so important. These guys don't moan to be on the bench. When they come on, they give their 110%, and what they do is really, really good. Ranocchia was outstanding, I thought, against Udinese. These cross passes he made, I've never seen him do that so good and so well. He did it time and time and time again. Danilo D'Ambrosio stopped 2 goals and scored 1. So, I mean, this is the kind of leadership you need in a dressing room. And that is something that Antonio Conte built with these guys. And it kind of seems to have stayed on and continued. And they're continuing that, tradition, if you will, down the, now that Conte's gone. And that's what I take. That's the most important thing I take with me from these 2 games. What about you, Michael? What do you take with you from these 2 games?
Yeah, no, it's definitely great to have to be able to slide guys in and not really miss a beat. That's kind of what the whole point of this is. When you're playing against these lower table teams, you don't have to necessarily start your full starting lineup, especially when you've got a big couple games this week coming up. So it was really good to not only have be able to not field a full team and still get those 3 points in both games, but do it not just because you're fielding like a second class team, but these guys can step in at any point. That's the whole point of this. And we can get Andrea Ranocchia to come in and play great. And we get D'Ambrosio. That was like one of the best games I've ever seen him play, at both ends. That goal that was connected between him and Sanchez was just phenomenal. And it was really impressive to see 2 guys who don't get many minutes for Inter really show what they can do. And not only that, but hopefully earn them some playing time, coming off the bench a little more in the future. But yeah, like that's one thing I liked about Conte's teams was they went out and bought a lot of players that necessarily, when you have injuries in the past under our previous managers, I don't think we had players that could just slide in when there was an injury or a red card or suspension or whatever it may be. And then when Conte take over, that's kind of transitioned to you've got 17 players where you can use at any given point. And we didn't have that before. So that's what I really like right now. Talking about that, these last 2 games, if we want to go on that route, I really liked what I saw out of Barella last game. I think he set a Serie A record because he was taking shots like every couple minutes, it seemed like, in that game against Udinese. I think he had 7 attempted shots against Udinese, and that was a Serie A record in a half for a midfielder of all time, which was I couldn't believe it. Like that would be the record, but he said it, and I think 3 of them were on target. He almost scored 3 of them. A few of them got blocked. I really like when I saw some Brozovic earlier in the game. Dumfries, good at some points, good at not some points. I don't know where we really stand on what he's been able to give for us so far. I think there's still a lot out there for him to prove. But I love the fact that we can play Ranocchia instead of De Vrij and not miss a beat. And that really helps. And I really hope that Correa can keep this up, because he seems to score in little bunches when he gets hot. And he really, really helped Inter against Udinese. And if he starts next week, let's hope he can keep it up.
What about you, Jake? What do you take from these 2 games?
I think the clean sheet's probably the most important thing to take from it. I think Udinese were very negative yesterday. I thought they were pretty content in just trying to limit Inter and seeing what they could maybe get on the break if they were if they were lucky, really. I think looking at the bulk of the squad, I think the only thing that concerns me is not resting Barella. That frustrates me a little bit. I'm worried that he might burn out a little bit. He was, as Michael says, he was fantastic yesterday, so it's not maybe affected his performance. But with the fixture kind of looking the way it is over the next 3 or 4 weeks, I'd have been probably wanting to rest him. That doesn't mean play Gagliardini, by the way, but it would be probably beneficial to have given him a rest. Building on what you said, Nima, I'm massively impressed with Ranocchia. I think I mentioned it yesterday in my feature that it's almost as if now he's probably the most content he probably has been in an Inter shirt, yet he never seems to play many games. You know, he was someone who had the finger pointing at him a lot during what was a bleak period for Inter. You know, a time where there was links between signing him or Bonucci, and Inter seemed to go with Ranocchia, and he got a bit of the brunt sometimes, having to follow on from the treble winning side, but he's really sort of found a niche for himself, and you simply cannot disrespect D'Ambrosio at all. He's massively clutch. He was in getting into the Champions League again, with that block against Empoli a couple of seasons ago. Similar block in the Derby match. He seems to pop up with some goals, and it must be difficult to think, you know, you're a player who's used to playing a lot of first team football who now goes and sits on the bench for weeks on end. But it just shows you what culture was created under Conte. He's got them really moulded as a squad, and even when Conte is now no longer at the club, it's still really evident to see that these players are all pulling together, playing for each other. And maybe in D'Ambrosio's case and Ranocchia's, it's the fact that they've been through such a hard time at Inter and now see the quality amongst the squad and really want to pull through. So for me, I was really pleased with both performances. I thought they were really solid. You know, Empoli was a massive banana skin. I predicted 2-1 last week, and you know they did it better than I thought on that one. And the Udinese result was pleasing once that goal sort of went in anyway.
Absolutely. Good points. I mean, just quickly on Denzel Dumfries, I want to build on that because I think that's a really interesting thing that you bring up there, Mike. I don't know where we are with him, but I am willing to give him that time because we see bursts from from him that's really impressive. And one thing I don't know if you guys noticed tactically is it's as if Inzaghi told him that he should be almost like a third or fourth striker, because he wasn't like offering depth and width on the wing. That was more coming from the midfield. He was in the box ready to head and fight for the ball and shoot and finish, which I thought was a really interesting tactical move. But I'm really happy for him because he did struggle. Let's be honest. Both him and Joaquin Correa did struggle quite a bit. But it's really, really important. They were really awful, let's be honest. Until the 60th minute, they both had shocking games. But, and this is a big but, if you can, despite a bad game, score a brace or make an assist, that helps your confidence so much when you're at a new club who has a new coach who's trying to get you in. And I think that's the thing that I take away the most from this. Because I'm not ready to sign, to write either of them off. But I do think that it was important to see that both of them give a performance like they did after struggling for 60 minutes like they both did.
Yeah.
For sure.
On that point about Dumfries playing like as an attacker, Nima, that's exactly what Dumfries did for Netherlands at Euro. Like he was basically playing striker as a wing back for the Dutch at Euro. He was like having breakaways. Like you don't see that as a wing back. There was multiple times at Euro where he was like being sent in on like breakaways. And if that's what suits his role, that's where he's going to find the most success, then so be it. Then have him play as such more of an attacking role. Because if that's what he's good at, then that's what he should be doing. I think that if that Inzaghi sees that, and maybe Inzaghi kind of had that mentality when they brought him in, or when Moratti brought him in, and look, maybe his defensive skills aren't there, but he's attacking. He can get in there. Why not? And now that you brought that up, I think that's pretty much what they looked at and said, look, this is what this guy succeeds at, and we need to keep him doing what he was doing for the Netherlands.
Yeah, and I think we should remember that he didn't have a pre-season with Inter. He literally arrived at the end when the season started, and I think that's really important. And it was a crazy pre-season for Inter as well. I think it's going to do him some good when they reach the end of the year and they have the Christmas break, and then he comes back and he starts working with the team again. I think the more he gets to train, the quicker he learns Italian, because he doesn't speak it either, the easier it's going to be for him. But one thing I got to say is Ivan Perisic, what a leader this guy is. I mean, not just his performances, but I don't know if you guys noticed, but how he has become like a dad in this team. The same, he takes care of the younger players. after the goal, he went up to Dumfries and was really like hugging him and telling him good job and for the assist. I was so impressive to see, and that's really important. I think this Inter, one of the things that Spalletti started to a certain extent and Conte perfected, and now with the addition of Dumfries and Dzeko, who are all captains in their national teams or club sides previously, that shows leadership. And with Perisic, who is a leader, that I think that you cannot underestimate the importance of that, to have characters like that. I mean, Perisic is not a wing back, but Conte made him into a really good one. And since then, I mean, the last few weeks, I think he's been Inter's best performer consistently. And Dumfries is struggling, and to see someone, give him like a pep talk and push him and if positive, fill him with positive energy when things are struggling, when he's struggling and he does something good. I think that you cannot underestimate that. It was really, really interesting to see. It's really, really interesting to see. And that means that this isn't like the days of Icardi and Nainggolan when they, when they didn't really like each other too much. This is a pretty close-knit unit, and I like that, and I think that's important.
How about Perisic's play on that goal?
Stunning.
On the first goal.
Stunning.
Absolutely incredible.
He's the one who creates that goal. I mean, I think Correa's finish is great, and we know his individual technique is brilliant, but that's Perisic's goal. He's the one who creates that entire play.
Yeah, he totally, I forget who the defender was who was marking him, but he totally fooled him, totally. And it's almost like he sees Correa moving before the ball even gets to him. So he already knows what he's doing, and he's able to fake him out so well. And that goal obviously never happens without Perisic using his head. And hey, listen, this is not something we saw from Perisic 3 years ago. I feel like Perisic would only do great things when the game was already out of hand, and that's just not the Perisic of this year anymore. It's not. He's doing things when the game is on the line, and the game was on the line when that happened, and Inter pretty much won that game because of that play. And who knows what would have happened later in the game if they would have scored or not? We don't know, but he made that play happen, and I think he's the reason why Inter won that game.
I agree 100% with that. I think he unlocks that game with that move because it gives Correa that kind of space that he needs to, and one-on-one with pace, then he's almost unstoppable. I mean, I keep saying that technically in the Serie A, on an individual basis, I think Correa is one of the 3 best players in the Serie A on an individual technical basis. The issue has been that he can't make it count, and he isn't a player that delivers points in terms of goals and assists. It looks great. He does a nutmeg. He does a dribble. He does something crowd pleasing, but it doesn't result in points. Yesterday, Perisic opened up, unlocked that space for him, and he was, and he was able to capitalize on that. And I think that's really, really important. So I'm with you on that. Right, let's move on to the part of the show where we pay tribute, rip the piss out of and criticize someone or something heavily in the world of football, starting with the negativity, which will be presented by Mr. Michael Gallo.
Oh, well, it's another week in Serie A and another week of some VAR problems. Just every week it seems to happen, and this one seems like it's the worst one of the year. I don't know what was going through the mind of referee Marco Di Bello, who I haven't really seen much of this referee. I don't know how long he's been refereeing in Serie A for, maybe not too long. But the call that he made in the Venezia Salernitana game was horrific.
It's one of the worst decisions I think I've ever seen.
I mean, look, we've seen some bad ones over the year, and we've in our brains we've got hundreds and hundreds of bad referee decisions over the years that we've seen against Inter. But this is up there. I'm going to say it's top 5 for me that I've seen, at least from watching Serie A. It was horrible, and not only that, it cost Venezia the game. What happened was the ball was played back to their I think it was Lampadu who went to Ethan Lampadu, who was at the back, and the ball was played back to him, and it was a little bit off, wasn't on going towards him, so he had to make a little bit of a challenge on the ball. Wins the ball perfectly, and the play continued for about 3-4 seconds. All of a sudden, the referee Di Bello just decides to pull a red card out, and it wasn't even a foul, and we don't even know what would have happened had, like, it wasn't even a goal scoring opportunity, maybe, but he didn't even make any type of contact. I don't even think he made any contact on the attacker. He made full contact on the ball before he eventually slid in, and I was shocked that VAR didn't overturn this. And sure enough, the game, I believe it was 1-1 at the time, and then Venezia gave up a 95th minute winner when they were down 10 men for the last half an hour. And for a team like Venezia, who's at the bottom right now, this could be a decision that could prove, life or death for them in Serie A this year. And it was shocking. And then Venezia's social media account was on fire this weekend. This wasn't only the only thing, but they literally
no.
This was the only best thing they did. But they literally tweeted the video of it, and I think they put an emoji with a question mark on it. They're like, but we don't know what this is. Why are we getting a red card for this? And I can't believe VAR did not overturn this. I mean, this is why we have it.
Isn't this the very definition of a clear and obvious error?
Yes, it is, and it should have been overturned. And I don't know why it is. I don't have the answer for you, Nima, and that's why I'm giving them the Moggi of the week, because I don't know what happened. I don't know why this happened, and it cost them at least a point with a team that they're fighting against
for relegation
at the bottom. Yeah. And who knows if this could be costly at the end? We don't know. If we look back in May and Venezia misses out by a point or two, and it's Salernitana that's the team that's in 17th place, we're gonna look back at this moment and they got screwed. And I don't think enough. I haven't been on Twitter that much lately, but I don't think there was enough made about this, because this was horrible. It was horrific.
It went viral. It went absolutely viral. I had people saying stupid shit to me like, "Oh, but there was contact," and this drives me insane, because first of all, there's no contact. He's on the ball, and then he's on Ribery. Like, the ball is stopped, and it's the definition of a good tackle. Okay,
it was a great tackle, fantastic tackle.
Exactly.
There was a poor ball played towards him, but he had to make a challenge on it, and he did everything he could to do it. I would have never done it as a defender. I would have never done anything differently as a defender there. I don't know what Di Bello was thinking, and I understand that, as a referee, you need to make a split decision in a very tight time, but he also knows he's got the benefit of VAR to correct that decision, to go look at it, and they didn't. They failed.
Yeah, and I have and it's quite an accomplishment given the last week or so to make a challenge to do as a referee, to make such an awful call that you become that this stands out, like, because the others are horrific as well, and the lack of consistency. I have a gut feeling, Mike, that Marco Di Bello is going to be in charge of the derby. I've ever since I saw that play, I was like, yeah, they're going to award him by giving him the derby.
Please not. Please don't.
I can't shake this gut feeling.
Yeah, we'll find out in a couple days who the referee is going to be, but I'm hoping it's not Marco Di Bello, because that was horrible.
Right, let's move on to something much more comical. This week's Frog, which will be presented by Mr. Jake Smalley.
È clamoroso! Autogol di Ranocchia!
Well, this is something that was drawn to my attention this afternoon. I was sort of going to go with a bit of a token gesture, but I seem to remember this from quite a long time ago. But this weekend marks 21 years. It's the fastest red card in the history of football. So Lee Todd was playing in Sunday League football 21 years ago, playing for Cross Farm Park Celtic against Taunton East Reach Wanderers. And it's been recorded as the fastest ever red card since records began. And the best thing about that is how it's come around. So, non-offside referee Peter Kerr warned all the players before the start of the game not to swear at all during the match. So, as he was literally kicking the game off, I went to blow his whistle. As he blew his whistle, Todd bent down and went, "Fuck me, ref." That was loud. looked up, and a big red card was in his face. He was sent off after just 2 seconds. He was then banned for 35 days from all Sunday competitive action and fined £27. So
did this actually happen?
This is real. This is deadly real. Lee Todd, if you're out there, if you listen to the pod, there's your moment of glory.
Yeah, get in touch because we want to. This is like the mother. This is you got to. Oh my god, I want to hear this. Absolutely.
Well, right. that's got to be the fastest red card to ever start a game. But I think that Sulley Montari still has the fastest red card from entering a game and then getting a red card
against Catania. Away. Yeah. That is unbelievable. Coming on, causing a 20-second, I think 10 seconds later, he causes a free kick outside of the penalty area, gets a yellow card. Then in the wall from that free kick, it hits his arm inside the penalty area. It's a penalty, and he gets the second. I mean, it's the worst substitution that in not only Inter's history but in the history of football. Like that is the worst contribution that any substitute has ever made.
I got Montari's face reaction burned in my memory from that game.
I've got Mourinho's face burned in mine. He was incredulous. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. He couldn't believe what was going on. He thought it was like someone was like he was on candid camera or something. But yeah. No, it is what it is. Right, let's move on to something much more positive. This week's Moratti, which I'll be presenting myself.
He works a lot, he's intelligent, and he surprises people sometimes with his ideas. Not easy to find one person of this qualities.
This week's Moratti, I've had a few. I was going to go with Joaquin Correa because he's made some because of the turnaround, because I think it deserves it, given how he struggled at Inter so far, and he's not had a good time. But to turn it around, and every time he scores in twos. The last 4 times he scored in the Serie A, he's gone on to score a brace, which I think is a pretty interesting record. But and I was kind of, should I choose Perisic for his leadership and Edin Dzeko for their leadership? But I have to give it to Venezia's English account on Twitter, who this is the greatest tweet or post on social media of all time. So they, as we all know, Venezia, they released these extremely high fashionista, elegant jerseys, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, right? And the ESPN FC, who've had an absolute shocker this past week, they posted a photo of Simone Inzaghi with the headline, is Antonio Conte the right fit to take over Manchester United, which is in and of itself absolutely chef's kiss good in terms of stupidity. But that doesn't even get the number one spot. They took these photos of Venezia's, which are incredibly high fashion, that you can tell that they've hired expensive stylists and they've hired expensive designers and photographers
and models.
And models, yeah, the models too. It's all very high fashion. It's all very couture. And they decided to post this and say Venezia have dropped the kit quartet of the year, but they kind of used filters and stuff when editing it. And Venezia, who are not taking any shit from anyone after the week they've had, they saw this, they quote tweeted it, and they wrote, and I quote, "Why is ESPN editing these photos? I guess the fashion photographers from Venice and Milan needed someone in world art capital, Bristol, Connecticut, to apply the finishing touch." That is...
Oh man, that's great.
Whoever wrote that, you are a hero. That is...
They've got a great social team. What can you expect? That's what these Italian teams are. Roma's is just as good. They get these first language English speakers in these social accounts, and they crush it. And Venezia's looked at Roma, and Roma has been crushing it for years, and they're doing the same thing. And they had every right to bury ESPN FC because that account is just horrible. I mean, they do a good job at collecting news and putting it into one spot, but they also have shocking tweets, and that was one of their worst.
Yeah, it really was. But I mean, for me, I mean, the worst one they had all week is the one with the photo of Simone Inzaghi whilst wearing a Lazio suit, and the headline is Antonio Conte the right man for Manchester United? That's like, what is it? Bring your 7-year-old to work day? I mean, Jesus. Right, that's all we had time for this week. I'd like to thank Sheridan Bird for joining us, and also like to thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much for having me, and a quick little shout out to my buddy Fab, who didn't think the D'Ambrosio goal should have counted because he thought a penalty should have been awarded a minute earlier. I'm not going to make a comment because I don't want to get into it because we're at the end of the show, but he may have had a point, but I'm not going to get into it. Thank you for having me. Another time we can discuss, and great being on again.
It's good to have you on. And I had that debate with him, and no, it's not a penalty. It's not a penalty. I'm sorry. Yes, it's a penalty. As we concluded the discussion, that's a penalty. The same way that Denzel Dumfries' touch is a penalty because they're both just touches. I'm tired of these soft penalties, and the thing that pisses me off the most is Rocky saying that we're not going to give soft penalties anymore, and then they proceed to give soft penalties. and it's just okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Lorenzo Pellegrini, Simon Kjaer and Lorenzo Pellegrini, after Ibrahimovic was given a penalty, they didn't. I mean, the lack of inconsistency in this league is what kills it, and everyone agrees. Like, you can't give one and not the other. They can't even be consistent in one game. Anyway, let's not get into that. Yeah. I'd like to thank you, Jake, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I've had quite a rough week myself personally. I've had a really bad cold, and I've sprained my wrist playing five-a-side this week. So if that's what it takes to get into to win back-to-back 2-0 games, I'll take a bullet to the head for a win on Sunday as well.
Are you playing keeper?
I did by accident. I was involuntarily putting goal for the last few minutes. I didn't have a chance to put my gloves on, and I made a world-class save, I might add. But I lost my wrist for the.
Okay, well, we hope you recover. We hope all of you are out there listening. We wish you a good week. Stay safe, 6 points, listen to your authorities, take care of each other. Sempre e solo Forza Inter.